Welcome to Trinity Place in Geneva, New York. My name is Cameron Miller, and this is a sermon for the fifth Sunday of Epiphany, and I'm reflecting on Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, but it also relates to many other things. Anyway, when I saw the readings for today, I had a hunch that turned out to be right. The fifth Sunday of Lent 2020, which was the last time in the lectionary this grouping of readings came together, was the second Sunday of the shutdown, when it shut down, and when we began to realize it might be a while before we worship together again. We had no idea in that moment how bad or how long or how truly dangerous the pandemic was going to be. We had never known a pandemic or a shutdown before. Nothing was clear and nothing seemed safe. Remember that? Well, just 2 weeks prior, Katie and I had moved into our downsized net zero home, never suspecting that she would be teaching from home at the same time I would be trying to write from home. And that's when I made an office for myself here at Trinity Place. Before that, I always worked at home, except for appointments. And just as an aside, because it's important, I think, to step back and reflect sometimes, I think we here at Trinity Place did a pretty good job as a congregation navigating the shutdown and beyond. The diocese recognized us with a grant because we were one of the few congregations that actually grew its outreach during that time of the shutdown. So people across the diocese were encouraged to donate to us, as well as another congregation in Rochester. But first we had the drive-in palms in the rain at the old parking lot of the old building. And then we had drive-by communion, and then we had lawn chair communion, and then we had tent communion. We had Zoom coffee hour in which people reported getting to know one another better than in-person coffee hour. And we started the Wednesday noon Zoom book study that continues today and has picked up some people who are not part of the worshiping community here as regulars of that group. And finally, like so many other congregations did, we went online. We did it a little differently, making these meditative worship videos, thanks to Lisa mostly, I think, and thus created another form of the Trinity Place community in which anywhere from 120 to 220 people join us each week. So some of those folks, some of you folks maybe, have made donations in support, and we thank you for that. Our pledges didn't really even fall off, unlike a lot of congregations during the shutdown and the pandemic. Unfortunately, either did our expenses, as we had to shift and adjust to a new reality. But standing on this side of March 2020, on the first Sunday, we are doing mask optional here 3 years later. It is good to be reminded of how we did. We did well, I think. So thank you, everyone. But also looking back, there was a lot of despair and a lot of false hope filling the space all around us. And that is the miasma that Ezekiel is trying to penetrate with his Valley of Dry Bones prophecy. You see, false hope knows the way to go. False hope has a vision of how it's supposed to look when the world is as it should be, and it has a variety of ideologies and theologies and protocols that spell out exactly how to get there. Just look on Amazon, where you can find thousands of books hawking all that kind of false hope of how to do it, where to go, what to do. Because every false hope sooner or later disintegrates into ashes, and when it does, it is replaced by despair. And despair is such barren ground. It's a damp pall, heavy and suffocating and hopeless. False hope and wishful thinking always turn sour, and then we are left with despair. So Ezekiel points the way to authentic hope, and unintentionally, that has also become a kind of subliminal theme in this year's Lenten preaching. But let's begin with Ezekiel. You may remember this because I have shared it before. It was the first 15 years of Israel's captivity in Babylon. It was a time of deep and pervasive darkness for those who had once known sovereignty and faith and a sterling confidence in the future. Suddenly, the nation had been eliminated by the colossus Babylonian Empire and swallowed whole through the teeth of the Leviathan, leaving them bloody and torn. Suddenly, the nation had been eliminated by the last of the David kings, the royal lineage promised by God, remember, to the people of Israel, was now shackled in a prison in a faraway and foreign land. The temple in Jerusalem, which they believed was the vessel of the Holy of Holies, and it was built upon the promise that God would always, always, always dwell there, was now rubble and broken stones. The city of Jerusalem, the holy city, the holy hill that was promised to be the beacon of light for the entire world, was now smoldering ashes. The land, the promised land, given to Abraham and delivered by Moses and taken by Joshua and divided because of Solomon, was now taken and owned by another empire, an evil empire, they believed. The exiles looked, and all that they could see were their bones, the skeletal remains of all those promises made by God. Bitterly they asked, where is God now? Was the promise betrayed? Was it all over? Had they misunderstood? Had it been a delusion? Was it time to abandon their faith and their hope and the faith and the hope of their ancestors and instead embrace the gods of Babylon? And then Ezekiel whispers his vision. The little lonesome voice of Ezekiel, a poet of small consequence, speaks. He sees a valley of dry bones. They're right there. He could reach out and touch them. He looks and he sees piles of shoes and suitcases at the National Holocaust Museum. He looks at the skeletal remains of Native American genocide publicly displayed behind museum glass for all to view. He looks at the ragged nooses and the blurry photos of thousands of lynchings at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery. And God asks Ezekiel, "Hey, mortal, can these bones live?" Well, of course, the exiles say no. Martha and Mary, they say no. The voice of our reason and our rationality in our own little head says no. Now, 3 years ago, standing on the other side of this video camera, I asked, "Can these bones live?" I said then that we were looking at the world with exiled eyes. We were those exiles, still in our homes, but exiled from our lives, from our communities, from our families, from our hope and our dreams. Mortal, can these bones live? That is the very moment when false hope or wishful thinking is the most dangerous. Cynicism, the nabob of negativity, will of course say no. But false hope stubbornly answers yes, oh yes. And then, as I said, it purports to know exactly which way to go. Such hope is rooted in the way that we want things to be, while authentic hope is rooted in trust that even without knowing how things will be. Authentic hope has a radical faith that answers the way Ezekiel did. Oh God, you know. I don't know if these bones can live, but you, oh God, know. And I'm sticking with you. Authentic hope and radical faith do not predict the outcome, nor do they have a comprehensive program of how-to books that will get us to the promised solution. Authentic hope and radical faith places its tiny hand into the hand of a power greater than ourselves and then walks forward. Authentic hope and radical faith place its hand in the hand of God and moves forward without the answer and, this is important, without despair, even though there may be fear in the absence of knowledge and in the lack of control. We understand that faith is often hawked as something else these days, something that we're supposed to get something for, like we have faith, we'll be happy. We have faith, we'll get blessings and riches. We have faith, we'll have eternal life. And hope is often sold these days as a trust in a solution that will make everything turn out okay. Hope painted in happy sounds and comfortable images of a Disney ending. But Ezekiel has a different take on hope. He tells those people who had endured more violence and suffering and pain than we likely ever will. He says, trust God. Trust God. Do not put your trust in your current grief and despair, he says, as if your despair is the proper punctuation at the end of the world. Do not put your trust in economic blueprints, he says, or political ideologies, or campaign promises, or religions that promise paradise. Hope is not a whitewash of wishful thinking over our current struggles, he says. Do not put your trust in yourself, he says, as if you can escape the present moment and live out on your own in some hidden valley where you'll get to be just fine without the rest of the world. The world is too small, he says, and the chaos too pervasive. Trust God, he says. And if we trust God, our trust will be our hope. Get in? Our trust will be our hope. Again, it's not a trust that God will do a particular thing, our thing, what we want, what we're hoping for. That's false hope. Rather, that we trust God is a lover. That we trust God is a lover of souls. And therefore, whatever happens, It will have meaning and it will have purpose. Even if we never get to finally understand what it was all about or how it all turned out. The trust being commended to us here by Ezekiel is the trust that Moses and Isaiah and Ezekiel and Dr. King and other such folks, just to name drop a few, what they had when they realized that they may not get to the other side. Because they knew, because they trusted God, that there is another side. It is the trust that Jesus had when he entered Jerusalem, knowing that he could not face down the Roman Empire, but he knew there was another side. Even he could not see that other side yet. All those folks, and almost all the people we claim to admire, did not hope for something in particular. They trusted in God as their hope. And that gave them courage, and that gave them strength, and that gave them some peace, even in the midst of chaos. Oh God, you know. It's not no. It's not yes. It is, I don't get to know. But you, oh God, know. Every single one of us, both individually and collectively, all of us face a valley of dry bones. It may be in our past, it may be coming soon in our future, it may be perhaps right here in this moment. As we face that valley, we will be afraid, and we will often feel alone. That's just a fact. God's question comes to us in such moments. Mortal, can these bones live? The answer is not yes. The answer is not no. The answer is, oh God, you know. An answer given with gut-deep tenacity to trust God and to trust that God is a lover of souls, yours and mine. Peace be with you and with your soul.